you've all been doing well. Back with another video, obviously. Week 52, and I think week 52, and I think that this celebrates 1 year. Woohoo! So, I guess you can go back and see how my hair has changed, see if I've lost any more. Feels like I probably have. But we've got a good one for today as well. Yeah, they're lovely.
Oh.
What is it? No? So, the lesson for today is once you can name something, you can start to control it. And that is such as with my room. I'm starting to try and organise my room in such a way as for it to essentially I'm trying to replicate the same type of analogy that psychologists and other people used to understand the brain, where we think of the brain cognitively as having receptors of things, sensory information going in, and then we typically have whatever processes go on, but according to memory, according to essentially the storage of information and like things that we've broken up as things that exist in our brains, if our brains do things these ways, our brains store information in two main areas typically. I mean, obviously there's different more complex models, but this is a very simplified version. But it's meant to be meant to take those principles or that simplification and use it in broad strokes in my own life. So we often think that there is the sensory information. I'll do it for you guys for here. Sensory information that comes in here, and then, well, actually maybe it's better for you guys there. Sensory information that comes in from here hits the body in all its receptors: the eyes, the ears, the skin, the etc., goes into short-term memory and then gets processed into long-term memory and different versions of long-term memory, all that type of stuff. And for the house, I want to do the same thing. I want to make every room in the house almost like, I bet I've probably already spoken about this in a video, but I want to make every single room in the house carry out a function. So, for instance, my room is the getting ready. So, as you can see, it's a bit of a mess. Moved it around. Got all those books, so many books. And then I got that as well. I moved the computer, so it's here, so that when it's light, the light kind of hits my face, which is pretty nice. But yeah, essentially, I'm trying to make every room in the house fulfill a certain purpose, just like how the body, different parts of the body fulfill different functions. So my room carries out the function of the place where I work, the place where I occasionally sleep, and the place where I occasionally also get ready, and also the place where I occasionally play video games or relax and watch media with Pra. So, the whole point is that I divide, when organising it, I take things and I group them into, is it something that is necessarily needed in the short term, hence short term memory for the house, is is it needed for any of those functions in the short term? Yes. Okay, cool. Is it something that is not for the short term, but is something that's valuable? Yes. Okay, cool. And is it something that really actually I don't really need at all? Regardless of whether it's in my short term or long term memory, if it makes sense like that. And so I've been going about my room, dividing everything that I see into these three categories, knowing that I can generalize all first, and then I can then go to each category, and I can then subdivide it from there. So in this way, this is the aspect of what I was talking about with once you can name it, you can start to control it. So we've kind of conceptualized as the items in my room having qualities of these different things. And so what I've been able to do is I've been able to look through all my countless like t-shirts I had, and I've been able to reduce it down to these. And the same for the trousers. I've got like 8 trousers now, and it makes it so much clearer as well, because and more so in fact, I've got this giant pile here, if you can see of that, and that's all going to go into long-term memory. So the function of this room carries out short-term memory, which is i.e. just the short-term functions I need. And then for long-term memory, where things are less essential but are needed there just in case for the one-off occasions, all those things are going to go into long-term memory. For instance, I put down there like, things that I enjoy wearing but would be better for a different season, or things that I enjoy wearing or will want to wear in the future but only for special occasions. These things, if I keep them in my short-term memory, which is basically just, the world I exist around because I interact with this in a more so short-term position, apart from, I guess, some of my writing sometimes, but because I interact with this world in the short-term memory, the physical world around me is interacting with my mind, and so having like, say like a Christmas jumper in my wardrobe only means that it's just one extra thing that my mind makes note of. And if I can just streamline it only to the essentials of what's needed in the short term, I just have less things that I need to think about in the short term, less unnecessary things, and thus I can focus more time on the things that are necessary and be able to better perform things. Ironically enough, though, that being said, this table here, it's like this one here, it's going to be full of a whole load of stuff that I want to get to as like little projects. So perhaps even I'll push them away. I've also realised that organising places isn't just like a one-off thing. This is something I've got to continue to maintain. And me a couple of years ago would have seen that as overwhelming, and I would have been like, I wouldn't have realised it's essential. But nowadays I'm happier about doing that, because at the end of the day I know the benefits of what it is, and I also know the problems of it. If I don't do it, my life's just going to get even more confusing, and it's going to be even more of like just a chaos. And especially in today's age as well, it's very easy for things to become chaoses because of how overstimulated and how much we have in front of us. My room has probably about 10 times, maybe even 20 times the amounts of things that most people had in their room if they ever had a room for themselves. And for the vast majority of humans, probably 99.9% of them, maybe even, they have, well, actually maybe 98, I don't know, I guess. Just because there wasn't as many humans back then. But then there is a lot of time. it's probably, you know, it's definitely probably around 99% or something. You know, 99% of humans have, like, they haven't had nearly as much as this. They've had, like, 20 times less stuff around them. They maybe even only had, like, you know, their favourite hunting tool, the piece of clothing that they wear all the time, and maybe some kind of ceremonial, like, piece of armour or, like, clothing item, but that's given around to anyone, like, you know, in that specific ceremony, you know? So we're vastly overstimulated, and obviously we all know this as well. But yeah, so this is another part of how to organise your life, is that organise things according to short-term and long-term memory. Now, this is only something that this is only an idea that I'm coming up with now, so I need to actually test it out, and so I'm going to do that now. But, well, no, there's no but. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to test it out, see if it works. If you find it an interesting idea, then try it out as well. Also, another principle is that, yeah, you divide and subdivide, and it's interesting as well because you can also see why, you know, successful philosophies or dominant philosophies, like, I mean, you know, this is like a tangent into, like, Deleuze and stuff, but, you know, so this is also why process philosophy has always been so kind of out of the side, because if you can categorize things to a largely successful amount, then you can control them to a largely successful amount, and you can organize and divide and keep things in certain places, and that's kind of infinitely more practical than to think that everything can be used in any other way, and, you know, and all that type of stuff. That's more abstract. Maybe that might not be understood. Maybe you'd understand it if you, God, that sounds obnoxious or arrogant, or like I don't know, something at my arse, or I smell my own farts or something. No, I'm not even going to finish the sentence. Well, no, I will for context, but yeah, I was going to say, maybe you'd only understand that if you've read Deleuze. But I haven't read Deleuze. I've read, like, maybe a quarter of Deleuze's book on Spinoza, a tenth of Deleuze's book on Kant, 2 chapters of Capitalism and Schizophrenia collectively, and flick through Empiricism and Subjectivity. So I haven't really read Deleuze either. Oh, and that last, like, that, oh, and Postscripts on Society's Control, and that one in the appendix for his Logic of Sense, the one about Plato, which is exactly what this is, like, this side tangent's about. And the other thing I wanted to say was that, as well as then subdividing it into these things, those are all the clothes that I'm going to do. And then here as well, so I've taken out actually a very significant amount of the clothes, but then I've now got this, which is just this, but you can't really see it that well. But essentially I've also organised it according to kind of the intensity of the colour, because that's kind of like the next important thing in fashion. It isn't to say, as many people do, like, the essential thing about fashion. Like, in general, we often say things are essential or something, like, and in these ways we kind of get blindsided. There are multiple things that are essential, and maybe there are some that are a bit more important than others, but they don't negate the importance of the things that are slightly below them either. But, you know, apparently, at least according to Pra, and this is what I learned from her, but, like, you know, texture and material and maybe other stuff are also important, but it's almost like if you had to choose between them, you'd put maybe colour slightly above texture or material, but you'd also, you wouldn't unaccount for material either, if that makes sense. But yeah, so I've got all these things in colour, like ordering of colour. And so I first ordered according to function, and then once you've divided according to function, then I've then subdivided within the functions according to colour, at least for obviously for any clothes, because but yeah, you can see it better with this. So that's what I'm doing. I'm subdividing things, and then first according to function, and then according to like what's more important about them. And I'm first dividing them according to memory, because at the end of the day, yeah, I know. That makes sense, yeah. And I'm going to see how this works, going to see if this is helpful for my own life, and see if it's worth something that's worth trying for yourself. Or you can even do that yourself. And obviously, I think that the more important thing is that, like, I was thinking about this, and I couldn't be fucking asked to watch a video about how to organise my clothes. That sounds like the most boring thing in the world. But the fact that even if I'm subdividing and categorising things according to a different routine than, say, like, even if you were doing it according to something else, the very fact that you're thinking and subdividing things just means that you're organising your own life, and you're making your life only clearer for yourself in the future anyway. The other thing that I might not have said is that I can see the negatives of not doing these things, but I can also see the positives. I can think about how great my life will be, and how streamlined it will be, and the idea that I can just like not have like an ADHD brain as people would have nowadays, just because I've organised things clearly and calmly. Apart from that, still working at my coffee shop. My social skills are pretty high, I'd say, just because any social anxiety you have, most social anxiety that I have had has just been erased just through sheer numbers of people chatting to you, and sheer numbers of people saying things like, oh, so how's your day been, has it been busy, or all that stuff. Financially, proud, doing pretty good, we're saving well. Socially, doing okay. I think I can definitely do a lot more for my friends though. Physically, went to the gym 3 times last week with one of my friends. I felt so much better for doing that, but I can already feel myself going on the decline. So again, I want to really try and work out how I can start reintegrating exercise into my life, because it's so good. It's probably one of the things that makes me happier. It's probably one of, if not the most effective thing in improving my mood. Just straight off, video games, maybe music, maybe even spending time around people. They're not as effective as exercising. They're not to say that they aren't effective, and obviously there's different orders to those as well. But yeah, sitting down and playing a video game, or going and exercising for an hour and doing an intense workout, I know which one's going to give me so much more of a happiness. I also, as another side tangent, I have a completely different mindset to how I did when I was maybe even 5 years ago, let alone 7. But 7 years ago, if someone told me oh yeah, you know, like I feel really motivated because I can see the downsides and I can also see the upsides. I know that when I was that age, I had such a mindset of dread and like scaredness that I could never see the positives. I always thought that my life would get worse. So I can understand why the way I think now, is not helpful necessarily for someone who was in that position. Or at least, I don't know. Well, yeah. But at least I know from my own experience of life right now, I know how I used to think, so I can talk to that person who I used to be. Yeah, I mean, that's just the takeaways. Good to chat to you again as well. But yeah, I'll see you sometime again. Love you.